Good evening. I'll just have to make a personal comment. That song just always just makes me feel so good, gives me chills. And I just think this is a great way to open our program and to begin our discussion. Good evening. My name is Betty Smith, and it is my honor to welcome you to our program in recognition of Black History Month, and also to introduce you to our organization, the National Association of Negro Business and Professional Women's Clubs, Incorporated. This evening's program is being presented by the New York Collaborative of the National Association of Negro Business and Professional Women's Clubs, Incorporated. The collaborative consists of the New York Club, the Bronx Club, the New Rochelle Club, the Riverside Club, and the Williamsbridge Club. Our national association was founded 88 years ago, and it was founded with the goal to protect the interests of Black business and professional women. And today, there are clubs throughout the country and internationally. Our program focus is LETS, Leadership, Entrepreneurship, Technology, and Service. And we conduct these programs, the related topics to these programs within our various communities. Our purpose is not only to protect the interest of business and professional women, but also to serve as a bridge for young people seeking to enter the business and professions, and to protect the quality of life in our local and global communities. And so we are very, very proud to present Reclaiming Our Children and Our Communities, a discussion with women on the move in our communities. We hope that this program will result in a call to action for us all to make a difference in whatever way we can. We're delighted that Terri Wisdom of the Harlem News Network has agreed to moderate our panel of dynamic women in this most important discussion. Ms. Wisdom is a film, television producer, entrepreneur, community activist, educator, and veteran journalist who was born in New York City and has lived and worked her entire adult life in the Harlem community. She is president of the Harlem Diaspora Foundation and is a dedicated caregiver to the underserved of Harlem and the Harlems of the world. Ladies and gentlemen, I leave you in the very capable hands of Ms. Terri Wisdom.
Okay, well, thank you. And good evening, everyone. I am Terri Wisdom, and I'm with Harlem Network News. And I am so honored to be here. Our relationships and our community are everything. I had the honor of receiving an award from the Bronx Division several years ago, and have interacted with the club as an entrepreneur at one of our restaurants. So it all just becomes history. And my sentiments exactly that just hearing that song really set the tone, laid it. The song is a mantra, the song is a prayer, the song is definitely a call to action. It is our anthem, so I'm grateful for that. And I also, just as we are reclaiming our children in our communities, I just want us to all just have a thought in prayer and in whatever way we pray for all of those that have lost their lives. We've had so much over the past few years with COVID, gun violence, mass shootings, people being beat to death. It has just really been a surge on that. So we just have to put the prayers out for all of those who have lost their lives. And this reclaiming our children and our communities is actually very personal for me. I lost my son a year and a half ago, November 5th of 2021, to gun violence. He was shot and killed on the Shinnecock Reservation, and the crime goes unsolved. I was always an activist, but now it's personal. I am a member of Harlem Mothers and Fathers Save with Jackie Rowe Adams, and work closely with Street Corner Resources. I was at something last night with Blackberry Productions, an organization called COP that is bringing youth and police together. So I'm grateful for this. I'm glad for this. We have a lot of work to do. And I certainly have been doing the work in terms of media, because what we see and what we hear is extremely impactful. So enough said, we're going to get ourselves started. And we have some amazing women on the move with us here. And I just want to say the names of these women. Our first person is Suffragan Bishop Judith Osalvo. Judith, would you just say hello to the audience and share with them who you are and who's you? Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you, Ms. Wilson, and thank you to your organization, the New York Collaborative, for this invitation to be a part of this discussion. I am officially with the National Association of Colored Women's Clubs, which was founded in 1896, the oldest African-American club in this country. And we continue to do the work that you started, as you said, 88 years ago. And it's just wonderful that all of us continue to strive to help the children, to help our mothers, the women, to strive to also help people to give us respect that we so rightly deserve. And I'm also the executive pastor of the Mount Olivet Apostolic Faith Church here in the city of Mount Vernon, New York. I'm with the Empire State Federation. I'm the immediate past president of that club, and I am the national chaplain right now of our National Association. So we continue to strive to do, our theme is lifting as we climb, and that's what we continue to do. And I agree with all of the things that are happening in our society, in our communities. We certainly need to come together. So this is an appropriate time for us to continue to address issues and just, let people know we are listening, we're watching, we're a part of it. And so I'm so sorry to hear of your loss. And I'm praying that there can be justice done on your behalf as well. Thank you for this opportunity.
Okay, I thank you. And now we're going to go to our next panelist. I'm Terri Wisdom, for those of you who are just joining, and I am with Harlem Network News. And this is the National Association of Negro Women in Business. And I am going to introduce our next guest, who is Joetta Brent. Thank you, Joetta. Let us know who you are and whose you are.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much, Terri. It is my pleasure to be part of this conversation tonight. And I am sure that whoever is attending is going to, number one, learn, and number two, enjoy. I am the president of the Williamsbridge Club of the National Association of Negro Business and Professional Women's Clubs, Incorporated. You have already heard that our club, our organization was started 88 years ago. That 88 years ago was 1935. Can you imagine the political extremism, inner city slum clearance, organized crime? We even had Donald Duck cartoons appear. Farmers were struggling due to drought conditions and climate change. Jim Crow laws, Black Americans first to be last hired and first fired. The Great Migration, Blacks moving north to escape the bleak economic conditions. But at the same time, Black entertainers were being recognized. Imagine a group of women coming together to speak and act on unfair labor practices, opposition to lynching and conditions of society, to come to a point of self-sufficiency, racial pride, unity, and political acumen. These women, Ollie, Emma, Effie, Bertha, Josephine, Adelaide, Pearl, organized, as we call it, BNP or NANBPWC, the National Association of Negro Business and Professional Women's Clubs Incorporated, where we continue to promote and protect the interests of African-American women and young people, and to serve as advisors for young people seeking to enter business and the professions, to improve the quality of life in our local and global communities, and to foster good fellowship. And that is who we are.
Okay.
And we, under our programs, under our purpose, we continue to promote business and professional women through our programs of leadership, entrepreneurship, technology, and service. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you for that. Well said, and always a bit of history. It is Black History Month, but as we know, it's Black History every day, 365 days a year. That's where we stand, and I will just make another statement. Since all of us here on the panel are women, though I'm sure there are some of our men, our counterparts that are listening, but heal a woman, heal a nation. So let us move on to Sister Angela Majette. Tell us who you are and whose you are, and then we're going to just do our rest of our introductions, and we're going to get on to our topics. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Angela Majette. I am originally from the Bronx. I'm a legal analyst and an accountant. And in 2019, I founded Black Connect, and I serve as the organization's national president. Black Connect is a chapter and membership-based organization, and we are dedicated to eliminating the racial wealth gap in America by increasing the number and success rate of Black-owned businesses. Some of our leading programs are our pro bono legal services program, being a legal analyst, having access to business attorneys was very important, and it was something that was missing. There was a gap in the provision of legal services. Usually when we hear about justice reform, we always hear about criminal justice reform. But if we're going to get serious about closing the racial wealth gap, we have to bring civil justice reform into the equation. So I made it my mission to start Black Connect's pro bono legal services program that provides our members with business-related legal services, because most entrepreneurs can't afford a $500 an hour business attorney. So it's a national program. We now have 30 partnering law firms. We also have Fever Pitch, which is our national pitch competition that I created because I noticed that other pitch competitions, the rules were so stringent that we didn't even qualify to participate. So I created Fever Pitch, which is a national pitch competition that is sponsored by Silicon Valley Bank, and we give out $10,000 every year to an entrepreneur. We also have business mentoring program. Black Connect is not just an organization for entrepreneurs, it's an organization for everyone who supports our mission. So professionals serve as business mentors to our members. And we also have a mentoring program with Salesforce. Some of our other partners include Salesforce, Silicon Valley Bank, North One, Braze, Squarespace. So we've made great strides in the last 3 years, but we still have a lot of work to do. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you for the work, and all of the work is interconnected, and the points that you raised are so critical when you spoke about the need for our business development, because that's definitely a lifeline to everything else. Okay, So I'm Terry Wisdom, Harlem Network News, and I am honored to be the host today for the National Association of Negro Women in Business. And our topic for today is reclaiming our children and our communities. And so we have some women on the move here, and we're going to get to our topics, but we're just doing our intros and just connecting and you getting to know us and us getting to know you. Michelle Tillery, let us know who you are and whose you are. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you again to the women of the National Association of Negro Business and Professional Women. It is an honor to be here this evening. Thank you for this opportunity. I am Michelle Tillery. I am a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated is the first African-American women's sorority that was started January 15th, 1908 on the college campus of Howard University. It's the oldest Greek letter organization that was established by African-American college educated women. We have over 355,000 members initiated, graduate and undergraduate. Undergraduate chapters, we have graduate chapters. We are international, as I said, we have Bahamas, Bermuda, Canada, Dubai, Germany, Japan. We started our mission back in 1908 to it was founded for 5 basic tenets in 1908, and we continue to serve under those same 5 initiatives to cultivate and encourage high scholastic ethical standards, to promote unity and friendship among college women, to study and help alleviate problems concerning girls and women in order to improve their social stature, to maintain a progressive interest in college life, and to be of service to all mankind. And to be of service to all mankind, currently under our current Supreme President, we follow 5 initiatives, and that is 1, empower our families; 2, build our economic wealth; 3, enhance our environment; 4, advocate for social justice; 5, uplift our local community. So our initiatives go hand in hand with tonight's mission to reclaim our children and community. Thank you again for this opportunity.
Well, thank you for that, Michelle. And we are grateful for all, I'm Terry Wisdom, Harlem Network News, and we are grateful for all of our organizations, our initiatives, our social clubs, our book clubs, our church, missions. It's very, very critical coming together and working together. And I know that when we elected our Vice President, Kamala Harris, who is also a member of your organization, of your sorority, I know that all what's called the Divine Nine, all of the sororities, fraternities, clubs, this one, that one, everybody came together on one accord. And that is a part of how we were able to elect her. I also am a member of an organization called Win with Black Women, which is Black women across the country. And they were very instrumental in that too, as well as, the nomination and, finalization of our Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson. So when we work collectively, and I say it takes a village, we definitely can make it happen. So I love it. Thank you so much. And now we have with us Bishop Donna Hubbard. So let us know who you are and whose you are. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Terry. God bless you and good evening. Please excuse my voice if it sounds a little raspy. I am just getting past being under the weather. Oh. But I'm blessed to be here. I'm grateful that I have a voice at all. Hallelujah. I have a vote even if I don't have a voice. How about that? That is my voice. My vote is my voice. But I'm grateful to be here. Thank you so much for the invitation. I am Bishop Donna Hubbard with Celebration of Praise Ministries in Albany, Georgia. I am the executive director of Woman at the Well Transition Center, a 25-year nonprofit organization and ministry that works with women who are impacted by the criminal justice system and human trafficking. And our mission is to assist them in regaining their lives, their families, and their dignity. And we've done that for over 10,000 women over the past 28 years. And so we're really grateful to be able to say we've been able to make a difference in our communities by making a difference in the lives of these women who have been impacted in some way by trauma, whether it was incarceration or human trafficking. I'm also a member of the National Association of Negro Business and Professional Women and the Metro Atlanta Club, better known as TMAC, where our president is Tamika Horton and our governor is Barbara Johnson. So we, of course, have the same standards and goals across the board as we all have. My life has been dedicated to working with women and girls who are impacted by incarceration, the criminal justice system, but more importantly, by human trafficking, because we think that human trafficking happens somewhere else to someone else. And I'm wearing this color blue because this is the color blue that is attributed to the human trafficking awareness movement. I am not only an advocate, a human trafficking awareness trainer, but I'm also a survivor. And we think that human trafficking is only sexual exploitation. It is so much more. And as a flight attendant for major commercial airlines, I am blessed to be able to provide human trafficking awareness training around the world to over 25,000 aviation and airline employees, along with 2,500 law enforcement officers internationally and 6,000 nationally have been trained, along as well as 12,000 public health professionals in human trafficking awareness. I look at the fact that human trafficking did not begin with a movement that we now call human trafficking awareness, but the exploitation of women of color, girls of color, and people of color began centuries before, but it was not brought into the forefront until people who didn't look like us were being trafficked and sold and bought, and then it became a movement. But we ourselves know that the exploitation of women of color has gone on for centuries as an accepted practice. My goal in life is to ensure that we are educated and informed in our communities to protect ourselves and our children from being exploited in any way. And so I'm grateful to be here today, and I'm looking forward to sharing with everyone and learning from everyone as we come together as a community and a village.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Bishop Donna Hubbard. And I'm Terri Wisdom, and I'm with Harlem Network News. And those of you who are just joining, I want to just catch you up. We are here with the National Association of Negro Women in Business. And we are going to cover several topics today and subtopics, but our theme for today is reclaiming our children and our communities. And we have our one of our final members of the panel who has just joined us, and that is in the person of Linda Kemp. So welcome, welcome, welcome. And Linda Kemp, can you tell us who you are and whose you are? Thank you very much.
Hi, good evening. It's an honor to be a panelist and to hear all the sisters and the things that they're doing in the movement to save our community. I'm Linda Kemp, director of Bringing the Peace Incorporated. Bringing the Peace Incorporated is a community-based organization in the South Bronx, where our mission is to do community engagement in order to rebuild relationships with community stakeholders, because the collective impact is the most important things in getting things done. You know, no one stands alone. And when something happens to one of us, it happens to all of us. So my organization brings highlights to health disparities, economic uplift, and violence. And violence can come in any form, whether it's domestic violence, gun violence, just violence of any kind. And we try mostly to work in peer groups, whereas though oftentimes the victim or the victim survivors are sent to psychiatric help, this, that, or the other, with people that they can't relate to. So we try to make that common bound of dealing with each other in a movement called eMove. eMove is empowering mothers and others, overcoming violence. And just a note, who I am, whose I am, y'all know as a child of God, right? So that's whose I am. When I read that, I had to ask my daughter. I was like,
Okay.
whose I am. So I'm here to take in the jewels, to give whatever input that I can give, and just work collaboratively with all of us to get things done to better our communities and especially our youth.
Okay, well, thank you for that. And as you can see, we have some women on the move who are dealing from many different aspects, but at a point, we all come together as one. And I want to just go over the topics and some of the subtopics, and then I will have some of you respond. Our topic, our first topic is gun violence.
Mhm.
And gun violence has to do with police brutality, Black on Black crime, you know, us on us crime, bullying, all of that is coming under the gun violence. Then we have economics. And of course, all these topics are interrelated. Economics has to do with bridging the racial wealth gap. It has to do with generational wealth. And really, as we saw during the pandemic, particularly in our community, it has to do with survival and food insecurity. Once the pandemic came out, and you know, I have interviewed many people, and I remember Dr. Maulana Karenga, the founder of Kwanzaa, just, you know, pretty much saying, we've been in a pandemic for 400 years.
Yes.
You know, it's the economic pandemic, the medical pandemic, you know, the educational pandemic, all of the disparities. And all COVID did is take that scab off the wound. And it birthed a lot of things. As we say, out of bad things come good things, because we got that awareness. My network, Harlem Network News, we started at the onset of COVID. And the reason that we did that, I have been in journalism and media and entrepreneur for over 35 years. But and I was thinking of doing a network, my partner was encouraging that. And once COVID happened, you know, we didn't have all of everything in place, but we had to jump in the deep water, because a lot of Black people were walking around Harlem talking about, I'm Black, I can't get it. And the reason they were saying that is because they did not see themselves in the media. They did not see us. So therefore, in our purview, we were Black and couldn't get it. And then we got hit really hard because of that. So very, very, very critical what goes on in our community and how we have to approach it. Another topic is education. And that has to do with the academics. It has to do with systemic racism. And even now in 2023, we are dealing with separate but not equal education. You know, in Harlem, though there may be gentrification, 99.999% of our children are Black and brown, and they're not getting the same education. And we saw the disparities once again during COVID, where they didn't have the computers, where they didn't have broadband, where they were trying to do their homework on a phone in McDonald's, you know, where the shelters and the NYCHA doesn't have the broadband that it should have. So all of these things coming to bear, and now, there's conversation and like what's happening in Florida, where they are banning books and our history and our culture. So we have a lot to address, of course. And we have drug and alcohol issues going on in our community. And now we have legalized the recreational use of marijuana, and there's medical use. And what's the impact on the Black community of these things? What are the long-term implications? Why in Harlem on 124th Street do we have like 4 methadone centers and drug treatment centers? Why are these centers concentrated in our communities? And what are some of these new drugs that the people are taking that is causing all kinds of behavior? Of course, homelessness goes in hand with that. And I would track back. And when we speak about education, I'm gonna speak about education and incarceration, because we know there's the prison, the pipeline or whatever going on, where they start building prisons by who didn't pass the 3rd grade test. Also, we know that, prison has, not that Black and brown women are not in prison, but, prison has become the Black man's college. If you look at some of the colleges, and these are strong statements, but they're true statements. If you look at some of the colleges, like we spoke about the great Howard University, which I'm a Howard parent and grandparent, and I see what the numbers are. I have one granddaughter that just graduated from Howard last year, and my grandson is at Howard in computer engineering, and there aren't a lot of men there. You know what I'm saying? And so we have to look at that. We have to change that. But a lot of them are shot and killed, or they're in jail. But those that are not, we've got to really work on that and work on the whole incarceration thing. What does it mean when people come out? Very, very, very significant. Can they get a job? Can they, not be stigmatized? Do they get the training? Because maybe in some years past, they used to get some kind of education in prison, but that's not happening anymore, And so we've got to look at these things. We've got to look at all of it. We have mental health issues, physical health issues, understanding that no matter what the economics are, no matter what the education is, we're still having issues with childbirth across the board for people of color. So we got a lot of things that we have to address. And mental illness, I know one of the panelists mentioned having people that you can relate to, that understand what's going on, and then of course, all these things that overlap, the drug situation and the mental illness. So we just have so much that we have to cover. And we are hopeful that in this panel, we will come up with some solutions or ways of working. We have to start somewhere. It's hand-to-hand combat. I say it's a war. So would anyone like to speak? And you can raise your hand physically. Oh, okay. All right. We got Ishel Tiffany. What you going to speak on? Topic.
So you stated a lot there, and
Yes.
What I didn't say is that I'm a social worker, and I'm also a professor at John Jay College and at Columbia University, and I've had various positions at nonprofit organizations where I work with children all the way up to adults. And when we look at the school to prison pipeline, when we look at the economic welfare gap, when we look at poverty, when we look at mass incarceration, we have to go back and understand what brought us to this place in the first place. And as an educator for college students, I am always surprised to hear that many students never really understood or knew about the Atlantic slave trade, which brought us to America in the first place. And when I shared this information when they're reading it in the textbooks. And I'm teaching them that this was the foundation to why we have mass incarceration, why we have poverty in our communities, why there's this racial discrimination, why, and understanding where we came from and where we are now. If more people understood that journey, I think we wouldn't always, we wouldn't consistently have to have these conversations, because young people, our next generations, would be armed with the information that they need in order to improve our communities. Why 125th Street looks the way that it does has a lot to do with all these systematic failures. It has to do with a lot of racial discrimination. It has to do with just marginalized community issues, and we have to address them. And this is my opinion, I'm speaking based on my observations with my students. We have to work with our children in our homes. And I tell them that all the time, that the reason why I know about the slave trade, the reason why when I went to college and I minored in Africana studies, it was because my parents introduced movies like Roots to me. You would not be surprised how many students say, Roots, what is that?
Right.
And then
No,
you
no,
have to
no
explain.
surprise. No surprise.
It's disheartening that they don't know stories such as Roots, or any story other than what's happening right outside of the community. And then they don't understand why we're in these positions in the first place. Many don't know about the civil rights movement. When I talk to students about why they need to vote, they say things like, why? I don't, my vote doesn't make a difference. You need to vote because too many people died for you to have that right. And they don't understand that. And so just taking it back and summing it all up, I think that the education in the home and educating ourselves as people of color would make so much more of a difference in how we go about and unpack a lot of this racial discrimination, systematic failures. We have to work on what's going on in our homes. And in order for us to really put a pen, a needle in where we are today. So I just wanted to start with that, because the education of African American Black history is just not known, and it's always talked about during this month, and it doesn't carry on month after month, year after year, because I think that's where the riches are, is to really talk about what happened, talk about critical race theory, understand what that really means. And so I wanted to say that because there's a lot to unpack, but there's a foundation we need to start with.
Okay, I think you're spot on. And for those of you who are just joining, I'm Terri Wisdom. I'm with Harlem Network News, and I am honored to be here today with several women on the move. We're here in the forum with the National Association of Negro Women in Business. And I see another hand. I see Linda Kemp. Did you want to speak? Let's see. Linda Kemp, I think you're muted. You're muted. You're muted. We can't hear you.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, Linda
Hi,
Kemp.
good evening. Here I go,
Yeah.
y'all.
All
No,
right.
I just want to speak on what the young professor was just speaking on, and the validity of our children knowing our history in order for them to understand where we are now. But in this age, our youth are tangible, that sometimes giving them that, we sort of have to start where we are and go backwards, instead of giving them that transatlantic and this, that, and the other. Because if it's not on the phone, if it's not coming past fast, this generation is not used to it. But I do find when I take the youth from my community outside of the community, and as teachers and CBOs, it's very, very important that we also show our children who we are. And I took my daughter to Albany on Friday for the first time. I've been going for over maybe 25 years to the legislative caucus. Okay. And I know what that is. When I first started going 25 years ago, I took students from Hostos. And even though the word Black was the first, there was no Blackness there. And so here we are 25 years later. And for the last couple of years, so when I took her, it became, she's dragging me to this thing. But once she got there and she saw us as a people, and I explained to her that these are the same individuals that live in your community. Things are based upon choices. So we have to open up the doors to listen to the youth and also to take them by the hand. Because this generation is not like, I'm a 50s baby. Okay, so children, if we're not holding hands, we are, so that they can move forward, knowing that what they have in their community is not the only option. And sometimes they feel, because I'm the type of person who I walk through the community and I talk with the youth, especially after violence have occurred. And it's because they're hopeless. They're hopeless. And we stop talking to them, and we need to pick up the conversations and talk about these things. Just as we talk about them on a forum for us to do a collective impact, we have to pull them together and let them establish their own collective impact to move forward.
Okay, well, thank you for that. And coming out of that 50 zone, I will say that as a teenager, I was an activist. And part of that, the movements came from the teens at that time. There was a war in Vietnam that was happening, and people were getting drafted like right out of high school. We really came into our own as being Black and wearing our afros and all of that, so there was a lot of social change, which we were a part of. We were leading the social change, and we started digging up our history. That's when some of the Black studies movements came. I was fortunate to attend Lincoln University in Pennsylvania, one of the first Black colleges. And, one of my schoolmates was Gil Scott-Heron. That's where the band started at Lincoln University. So we were very, very conscious. And even that year on the campus, the school had to shut down early because it's where people were killed at Kent State and Mississippi State, and they were burning crosses on the campus. So this was real for us. You know what I'm saying? This was real. And we must understand, and I will quote, as Gil Scott-Heron said, "It's winter in America." And that did not happen by chance or by choice. There were lots of infiltrators from FBI, CIA, who basically job was to take our movement down, to assure that we did not move forward. So there was a conscious, because they understood how powerful we are. So it was a conscious movement to take us down, to bring the drugs more into the community, so that those that were intelligent, or leaders, we all intelligent,
It's systematic.
Yeah.
And I truly know, because we happen to be one of the first families of children bused out of Harlem into segregated schools.
Okay.
So I was the only Black child in my class on 59th Street.
Okay.
And so by time the year was up, even though I was an A+ student, they said she has to go back to Harlem, because their explanation of what they was giving us as history wasn't mine. My brothers were Panthers. So, things have changed. And I truly understand all of that. But go ahead, I want the next panelist to speak.
Okay. And we have Suffragan Bishop Judith Osalvo. How do you weigh in?
All righty. I want to agree with Miss Tillery and Miss Camp in regards to the education piece and our parents and grandparents. You know, we've been holding our families together for many, many years. And I continue to stand on that because of our parents and grandparents spoke up for us, did for us. We have to continue to do that for our children. And yes, I remember Roots, but I also remember Eyes on the Prize. And
Yes.
that thing would
All right.
shake me so much.
Mhm.
Every year that I saw it, it just gave me chills. But it also gave me that, we need to do something. We can do something. Now, I have been voting since I was 18 years old, and I don't miss an election. I vote locally, school board, I vote in the city, I vote the off years, as they call it, but I have not missed an election. Now, some people think that, our vote doesn't matter. It matters. And if we continue to say that to our young people and also demonstrate it, we're saying it, I salute all of you educated women. We're educated. I have 2 master's degree working on a doctorate, but we're all educated. And then we have to continue to say that on that level as well. So no one is left out, from the smallest to the youngest to the elementary, but our voice is important. We have to let our children know your voice is important. Find your voice. With just looking at this panel, and the variety and levels of experiences that we come to this table, we have all of this in every one of our communities. So we need to continue to do what we're doing. Speak out, be a voice in the community, challenge our children, put the books in their hand. I still love a hard book. I taught in public school 32 years, and I did music, but I always did Black history. I always did my culture. I said, I'm here, I'm gonna give you my culture, and I still have my Kwanzaa books. I bring them out my kids are grown, but I bring it out, I put it on the table. Now I got grandkids coming to the house. We have to continue to do that. Let them see the love of our culture and what our people have done. And, we just got to do it.
Yes.
That's all I'm going to say right now, so someone else can talk.
Thank you for that. I think we have to be living, walking, talking examples. We got to breathe it. We got to eat it, and that's what we have to do. And I will say, I'm Terri Wisdom, Harlem Network News, and we're here in a very robust conversation. And other things that came out of the pandemic are all of the horrific killings that took place, from Breonna Taylor to George Floyd to this to that, and it continues. That in itself, those people were on what I call the cross, because they brought the example. They died for us. We saw what happened, and then there was a call to action from that, and it's horrific, and it's still happening, and some of the public officials, and I don't say politicians, I say public officials, like, why have they not banned the automatic weapons? We keep getting mass shootings, mass killings, but we've got to rise up. We have to rise up. We have to reclaim our children. We got to reclaim our communities. That is our theme. And that's not easy work, but we have to do it because we are at war. And just a little bit about, as you said, a lot of the young people don't really know what happened. And that in itself is like a media ploy. They're not supposed to know what happened, because if you don't know yourself, you don't know your language, you don't know where you came from, it's a problem. And we see that when we saw the Wakanda Forever and all of that, how much they gravitated towards it. Woman King, these are pieces of history that even we don't know. That's by design. And the situation with the prison, the pipeline, and we must understand that even after, slavery was abolished and freed, they really put the prison system back in right then and there, because that's the only way that they could keep people enslaved through prison. And if you read some of the clauses or whatever about prison, most recently, I was on the Exonerated 5 task force, and we put that gate of the exonerated in Central Park. That's a win. But if you really read the laws according to, some of the Exonerated 5, Dr. Yusef Salam speaking and saying that when you're in prison, that's a legal form of slavery. So you got to understand that that's what that is. Okay, so Joetta Brown, weigh in.
Yes, thank you. I agree with what everyone else has said. I want to highlight voting. The rule is in New York that if you do not vote in the primary election, your name will be removed from the vote, and you cannot vote when the general election comes around for the president. So what we do, what BNP does with our programs on voting, we emphasize that, and I would encourage everyone to emphasize that for voting, one vote counts. One vote makes a difference, but you must vote in the primary elections, in your local elections, each and every one. And as each of us has expressed on this panel, that we have voted since we became 18 years old. I got my start in the activism forum with the civil rights movement. Immediately after I finished high school in 1959, I joined with CORE and did the marches and all of the whole civil rights movement. So this is where we're coming from. But the other thing that we need to do is we need to teach or provide opportunities of learning for our history before the Atlantic slave trade. And I will stop there.
Yes, thank you for that. Yeah, it didn't begin with slavery. It did not begin with slavery, and we have to understand that we did come from kings and queens, and I think all of us, not that we're all in exactly the same range, but we experienced some of the same things. I was bused also, and I was in Queens. And I remember being, and busing when it started was supposed to go two ways. It was supposed to be white people getting bused into the Black communities, and the Black people getting bused into the, into their communities. And we were all supposed to be hand in hand and Black and white together. Well, that never happened. Only the Black people had to go to the white neighborhoods. And I did get a good education, but it was traumatic. In a sense that instead of calling me the N-word, they were like, oh, she's a bus child, and people were asking me things, if you had enough to eat, and were you cold, and was your father home, and, so it was a lot of things that went on. And I know, once again, though I went through a lot with that, that made me the person that I am today. That made me know that after all the things that were happening when I was in high school, that I definitely was going to go to an HBCU, because I didn't want to have to deal with all of that. I just wanted to concentrate on my education and, be okay. So I think that there's a lot to be said as to what's happening with us and why we understand it. And as you said, the young people, sometimes when you're talking to them, though they don't hear you, they're not really hearing, because like you said, if it's happening quick or flashing at them or on Instagram or TikTok or something, they get it and they take it in. I have a grandson, now he's 12, one of my grandchildren. And I remember him saying, Grandma, I don't know what I would do without TikTok, because I just wouldn't know what was happening in the world. So, we have to invade those spaces. And I have said many times, that I was bused and this happened and that happened. And, my middle granddaughter, she said, well, she really didn't get that I was alive until we went to see Till of Emmett Till. And she was like, you were alive in that time of segregation? You know what I'm saying? So it doesn't necessarily register because there's so much coming at them. So what we have to do is we have to pierce, I believe, that veil. So we got our topics and we have talked about what our experiences have been, but who has an idea for how we can connect with the young people and what we can do and how we can pierce the veil? Okay, I see Bishop Donna Hubbard.
This has been such a engaging conversation, not just being able to have your input, but just listening to, our different perspectives on this. So I'm going to answer your question, but I also want to add, for instance, they used to say the most, if you ever want to hide something from a Black person, from a Black man, put it in a book. And yet our children are masters of technology, masters at a very young age. They can tell you, your 7-year-olds can tell you how to get on a cell phone and what to do. But I have to say, I'm so happy to hear someone say that our history began before the Pan-African slave trade, because I have a cousin who works with Ancestry.com. Initially, he worked with Ancestry.com, and Ancestry.com actually bought him from, brought him over and enticed him, because his work in research has been so in depth. We did not know who we were, where we came from, but because of his research, we have found out that my great grandfather, who came over on one of the last slave ships, came over as a 13-year-old. He was from Guinea-Bissau, from the Balanta tribe, and he had no name. So my cousin named him, during his research, my cousin named him Balanta Malcolm. But initially he was named African Malcolm because he had no name. We didn't know his name. But because of his research, he found another young man whose name kept coming up in his research, and he called him, and it happened to be my first cousin. And what we found out is that his great-grandmother is my grandfather's sister. And out of the 15 of them, so we have located now 8 of them. One of my grandfather's brothers was the last Buffalo soldier, Morris Malcolm, who was raised with my grandfather. They were brother and sister. They were brothers, and he is buried here in Georgia, where I live. But we didn't know that until this research was done. And so, while we say if you want to hide something from a Black person, hide it in a book, the reality is we can use technology to our benefit. We can use technology to our benefit today and really engage in that. And I think it's really important, because one of the things that I have learned since we have gotten this information about who we are, we named him Balanta, which is the tribe we came from. His name is now Balanta Malcolm. He married a woman from Cameroon. But anyway, what we have found out is that in Guinea-Bissau, girls are only educated to the 4th grade. So it's not just education here in America with African Americans. It is the lack of access to education worldwide, especially for women and girls of color. When we talk about mothers who are impacted by incarceration, more than 50% of the women who are incarcerated more than 50% of the women who are incarcerated haven't worked a job in the last 10 years. And 70% of them are the primary caregivers of children. So they say the most dangerous man is an educated Black man. I think the most dangerous woman is a determined Black woman. When we are determined to get our children a better life. And then we find ways. We fry fish dinners. We do what we have to do to raise the money.
Absolutely.
We talk about health care in our communities. I'm on the board of directors here in Georgia on the family of the Georgia Family Health Centers. And we have to talk about mental health, but we also have to talk about adolescent depression. We have to talk about elder care, because we are living longer now, but we are not being cared for. And those of us who are caring for elderly parents are not taking care of ourselves. So, we're going through our own different depression. I go back to Gil Scott-Heron's "The Revolution Will Not Be Televised." Well, guess what? It is being televised. It's on social media.
It's live.
The minute someone is killed, the minute someone is mistreated, the minute someone goes missing, it's on social media. The revolution is being televised. It is being televised, and it is a revolution of the secrets that have been kept about what has happened to so many of us.
Absolutely.
How many young Black women have disappeared and been found in dumpsters, and we don't even know about that. But when a young white girl goes missing in a suburban neighborhood, the FBI is going to go after her, And I think some of the things that we are learning from the violence that we're witnessing in the streets is a matter of self-hatred. We've been taught to hate ourselves.
Mhm.
And I say that because when you look at white on Black crime, we know that there is a totally different motivation. But if you go to a jungle and you see all the lions killing other lions, there's something wrong. And so we know that there is something wrong because we have young Black men killing young Black people. Old, young, it doesn't matter, but they're killing each other off. And so I think that we have to look at how, at where the Bible says the kingdom of God suffereth violence, but the violent take it by force. And I think that we're going to have to gird up our loins as women of color, and we're going to have to take back our children, take back our communities, take back our families. Our families are not statistics in the public health, in the public welfare system. Our families were institutions that were the first institutions attacked by slave traders or people who wanted to divide us. When you look at Tarzan was supposed to be a success because he infiltrated the deepest, darkest jungles of Africa at a time when white people could not infiltrate the deepest, darkest jungles of Africa because malaria would kill them off, but it didn't kill us off.
Okay.
And so we have to really get determined and violent in the terms of Dr. Martin Luther King's nonviolent. We have to be that kind of determined, that kind of dedicated. If we're going to take back our children, our families, and our communities, it begins with taking back our own self-pride, our own self-worth as women of color. We have to begin to value ourselves. We have to begin to value each other. You know what I'm saying? Build each other up. We spend so much time being jealous of one another, competing with one another, comparing one another, and instead of building one another up. And when we come together, which is that is the value of NA and BPW. And that is because we build one another up. We support one another. We encourage one another. We give worth to one another. We value each other's gifts. And we bring them to the table for the betterment of our people, our families, and our communities. But we're going to have to get aggressive with it now. It's not going to come, and nobody's going to give it to us, and it's not going to come easily. Human trafficking is happening. When you look at the number of we think it happens somewhere else, and we think human trafficking is just sexual exploitation. But when you look in our communities and we see drug dealers giving young men a weapon and giving them a package and telling them to bring back my money, we are now looking at child soldiers. We've seen within our communities child brides who have been married off to celebrity rap artists and celebrity R&B artists and celebrity this and celebrity that, and they've been traded for money and prestige. And the reality is those are child brides. It really does happen in our own communities, but the exploitation of people of color has gone on for so many years and so many centuries as an acceptable practice that we have come to accept our own exploitation. And what we have to do is stand flat-footed and say, we're not going to be exploited anymore. Our children are going to begin to rise up as the geniuses that they are. They can read. You know what I mean? We have to get them the help if they're dealing with mental health. And we know when we know our children are having a problem, a mental health problem, a depression, we got to get them the help. We can't tell them, let's go shopping. We can't say, you just need a day off. Those are serious problems. My brother was 16 years old when he took his own life. And when we went to the hospital, we found out that the majority of suicide victims at that time, those who died of suicide, we don't say committed suicide because suicide is a result of untreated depression, just like AIDS is the result of untreated HIV. So when we found out that the highest number of suicide victims are young African-American men, 15 to 32.
Wow.
So we have to begin to rise up and be equally as determined and violent in a nonviolent way to take back our children by demanding that they have an equal education. And if they're not getting it at their school, then we come together. We have to come together and use those same systems that have been leveraged against us, and we have to use it for our benefit. So now that's when you go to the school board as a group of parents of color and say, my child deserves an equal education, just like anybody else's child, no matter where they live, whether they live in Harlem or in the Hamptons.
Okay, well, thank you for that. And well said. So much work to do. And we speak about education, and Angela Majette, I'm coming to you because I know you can't raise your hand. But I want to just say education is in the books, is in the learnings, is in the 1, 2, 3s, is in the grammar. But education is also consciousness, civics, spirituality, history. It's all of those things. And one of the things that I learned on my first and only trip to Africa, I had the honor to go to the Republic of Benin. And I also went to Nigeria. But what I understood is that in many of those countries, people are very active, they're very political because it's in their face. You know, they understand that what's happening with their public officials is what's happening with them. So down to the smallest child knows what is happening and is active and engaged. You know, I remember being in an area called Alada, and I looked up in the dirt road and I see a statue of Toussaint Louverture. And I'm like, what the heck? You know, and a little boy said, well, you know, this is the village he's from. So, you know, I'm just saying that there's education. I also had, you know, and I thought I knew my African studies history. I took it at Lincoln, I took it at Fordham. And, you know, my partner, he lived in Africa, you know, for over 10 years. But when we got to Benin, that's when we went to the palace at Abomey, which is really where that woman king story comes from. We saw the breastplates. We knew about that. So even those kinds of things, those of us who think we are educated and we know, we don't know, you know, because it's so vast in terms of what we have to deal with. And I like what you said about the determination and moving forward, you know, in a nonviolent way, but it's an intense way that we are fighting for the lives of our children. It's a war and we got to stand up from it. You know, I mean, we can even go on to another subject. They have, you know, intentionally tried to destroy our families and pit the men against the women, you know, and that's another form of destruction. So, Angela, please.
I just want to say that I'm a former educator. That was my first career. And I had the opportunity to be a program coordinator of an Upward Bound program. And being in control of that budget was a great, it was a great asset for the students, because one of the things that I was able to do is identify unmet needs and try to meet those needs through that program. So one of the things I did was implement a Black history program and actually hire the instructor and go over the curriculum and make it interactive and engaging. I don't know if you remember, there used to be a show on BET called Teen Summit, where all the teens would get together and talk about important issues. I took them to Washington, D.C. to appear in Teen Summit. So one of the things that we can do is try to identify those unmet needs and create platforms. Like you said, we have technology. The same way we're here talking, we should be able to creating platforms for the teens to talk to us and tell us what they need from us. And I find that if you give them leadership roles, they will assume those roles. You know, they want to take the lead.
Yes.
And as far as our males are concerned, you know, if we can step in and teach them trades, you know, so that they leave high school as a certified electrician or a welder, those are the types of things, hands-on things that boys typically at that age like to learn about, but they're not getting those skills in school, and they come out making minimum wage. So I think we just need to identify unmet needs, identify the gaps, and try to meet those needs through either our organizations or other nonprofit organizations. You know, with job readiness programs, let's look at trades. Let's look at trades for our young men and women. So that's just my 2 cents on education.
Okay, Linda Kemp. Linda?
I want to make this comment here. Over the weekend, I was up in Albany at the legislative conference.
Yes.
And I sat in on the labor meeting after the labor luncheon. And the topic was education and the pipeline to incarceration and all those different things. And I did have to speak on, because in New York City, on the labor side and in the assembly, there is money. And so they asked, how could that money be best used when we're talking about facing the challenges in our community, especially with the youth? So the topic of education came up, and I submitted, because the conversation continued to go over about the age of, I think it's 14 to 24.
Mhm.
Okay. And that's who they want to serve. And they want to just serve the high school students.
Mhm.
But in order to stop our children from feeling hopeless, we got to take vocation back into the schools at elementary. So if we start to train our kids, because we have to capture them before junior high school and high school, because the guy on the corner is waiting for him already. And he's already enthused. These children, they haven't seen anything else. They haven't touched anything else. A lot of the parents are home. A lot of these kids come out of the network of the crack epidemic. Those parents having babies, and those babies having babies. And they become the electronic kids, but they have no training, they have no skills. So my proposal to them was that we start vocational, coming into the 6th grade, train them. By the time they graduate from high school, they're ready for college or a job trade, and then it's already put into the union. Because kids, even though they send, in our community, a lot of money is spent on OSHA training. Oh, we're gonna train these guys this, we're gonna train them that, but they're not training them a skill. They're training them a reading class and giving them the answer. So then when we send them out onto these community jobs, that we who sit on the community board say that we want a certain percentage to go to our community members, but our community members aren't qualified. So I think if we start early in education, giving our kids vocational, and we can go up to Albany every Tuesday, I heard, take your kids and let the kids tell our legislator where the money needs to be spent. We spend a lot of time letting everybody make decisions for us, and we're not making decisions. So we need to gather us up, gather our kids up. And I'm very, very much so passionate about that, because I come from a class where you got home ec, you got shop, You got things that helped you to engage. If you weren't going college bound, you had a skill in order to feed your family. So to take it away from drugs to prison pipeline, we need to make them prepared to do the work. They are building our communities up. They're not expecting us to have ownership. That's why all this low income housing is going in, because they're saying this generation is not going to own anything. So I propose that we all to battle each and everything here, because economic has to do with mental illness and, all these stress factors are all combined together. But if we take our babies at a younger age and start prepping them for who they're going to be when they become young adults, when they're older adults, they'll be more right. They have choices. Right now, the majority of our children don't have choices. And that's also, I know with trafficking, because in my own community, my first experience was trafficking was a young man that I knew. He called me and said, my daughter's missing, Miss Linda. I can't find her. So through the grapevine, all the people that I know, we found her. I went so far as put it on Channel 12 News, and who had her saw me and saw her picture, and they put her in a cab and sent her home.
Okay.
This is, we have to step forward, be vocal, take hands, and I have no doubt that we can reclaim our communities, our children, but we got to be diligent. We as the elders got to read, okay? And we got to listen. Albany was a great experience for me. As much as I go, I usually just go to the workshops or when somebody's passing out. But I went in because now is the budget time and where the money is. And if the people who vote for them is not telling them where to spend the money, they're going to spend it wherever they want to. And it usually does not come to us. It comes to those who are giving them money for their campaigns. So we got to speak up. We got to vote. We got to educate each other and educate our children.
Yes, thank you so much for that, Linda. I'm Terri Wisdom, and for those of you who are just joining us, I am Terri Wisdom with Harlem Network News, and today I have the honor of hosting this incredible conversation, which is a call to action that is with the National Association of Negro Women in Business. And we have women on the move that are here in this panel. And Linda Kemp was just speaking for those of you, because one of the things at Harlem Network News that we always say, knowledge is power. And so I always want to make sure everybody understands what we're talking about. There was a Black and Puerto Rican caucus that happened in Albany over this weekend. And there were many buses that came up from Harlem and other communities. I understand they had, great panels. They had a ball. They had Joaquin, from one of the, first Black studios and record labels. It was a lot going on up there. And I was not able to make it. I wanted to go, but I was torn because there was a film that was screened on African Jazz Association and Black is Beautiful. And that was at the library on Kingsbridge. And I had committed to go to that way ahead. But that was very, very powerful. It showed our history. It talked about the Black is Beautiful movement. One of the things that came out of that in 1959, there was Carlos Cooks and Charles Pica, who followed the Honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey. And they actually had a conference in 1959 where they made a decision that we were going to be called Blacks from Africa as opposed to Negroes of color. So that was a conscious thing. There's so many things that happen in our community that we don't know. But on the political tip, I would say that there is a lot of money. There's money. There's money everywhere, but it's not in our hands. Our community is online every Wednesday right outside my door, getting food. There is food insecurity. You know, there's homelessness. The mean apartment size in New York City is $5,000, and what is said to be affordable housing is not. So what has to, I believe, happen is that we, in voting, and only, you know, in many instances, especially if it's not a presidential year, like 7% of the people are voting, 15% of the people are voting. Then there's ranked choice voting. But if everybody really voted, we would have some huge changes in our community. And I do believe that there's probably a group of public officials, you know, or I don't know who, that is saying, well, great, if a whole bunch of people don't vote, we can control the people that are voting, and that's how we get it. So we got to look at what's really going on in our community, and the public officials that we do have, we have to hold them accountable and put feet to the fire, because there is no lack of money in New York City. You know, I remember when de Blasio was in, and there was $1 million of this and that for something on race and a commission on mental illness. Well, who saw that money? What happened with that? You know what I'm saying? I mean, let's speak truth to power, because we can't afford not to, because our children are dying, you know, and my son was shot and killed, but I don't say that it was the bullet that shot and killed him. It was systemic racism. That's that bullet. You know, us killing us. That's systemic racism. That's that bullet. And it's nothing new, because back in the enslavement times, there were overseers. And who was the overseers? It was the Black people, you know, beating the other Black people harder than, quote, whoever, the master. So we have to look at that. And then we got to look at media. Okay. That's why Harlem Network News is here. We got to look at media, because there needs to be an infusion of money into our media. Our media is gone. You know, a lot of the shows, you know, our BETs and our TV ones, they doing reruns, you know, of Martin for hours. You know what I'm saying? It's not happening, and we're not getting the information. A lot of the press is gone. And as we can see from the Trump situation, that everything was happening in the media, you know, and people believe what they hear. It might not be the truth, but that's what they believe. So we got to get our truths in. And I'm going to have one issue, and then somebody else is going to pick up this baton. But I am just saying that when we saw the killing of Terri, the only people that we saw in the news was the 5 Black policemen. That's whose picture was up there. And that's not all that happened. There was 3 other police, and they were white. Why was their picture not there? Because the media didn't put their picture there. What happened to them? Did they get fired? We don't know anything about that. You know, so this is a media ploy to look at, oh, these Black cops, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, they did do that, but that's some overseer stuff. So we need to look at, where were the white cops? They got to be accountable too. So
that's that self-hatred again. And I just want to, I don't want to take over this conversation, but let me just say this. We're looking at a generation of children who have so little conscience, and they don't think beyond where they are right now. My daughter asked me, Mom, why are these young people so angry? I said, because Bebe's kids had kids. Bebe's kids, you remember Bebe's kids? We never saw Bebe. Those kids raised themselves. The neighbors raised them. The neighbors fed them. The community raised them. The teachers, everybody raised them except their parent. And so they tried to put that label on all of our children, all of our mothers who had babies and lived in the projects, and that was not the case. But what we're looking at with this generation of young people right now is that Bebe's kids had kids. And I think that, you know, if we want to bring up the service of, if we want to bring up a redeeming factor, and there are many with former President Jimmy Carter, I think he was dedicated to serving. And that's something so many of us, we lived our lives serving, but our children and this next generation under us don't serve. They are self-serving, but they don't know the value of serving. and community engagement. And I think that is one of the steps that we have to do. And it doesn't mean just take our children and our grandchildren, but there's a single mother down the street working 2 jobs to take care of those kids, and that's why they're home by themselves. So when we take our grandchildren to the library, go get those children. Ask her, can I take your children to the library? We're going to clean up this particular block on next Saturday. Can your children come? And we're going to have to really be the village that we say we are, and engage not only our children or our grandchildren, but those children in our neighborhoods as well, who are actually influencing our children.
Mhm. Yes, thank you for that. That's a great statement, because it really doesn't matter. Our communities are very lateral. And though you may have done this and done that, and your child was in the Harlem Little League and the baseball and the whatever they were in, and the Harlem School of the Arts, there's still the other kids that's on the building. So if you don't take care of the whole group, then you're not taking care of anybody. And when you were saying, I believe it's you, Ms. Kemp, that was talking about training from the early age, and woodwork and cooking and all that. When we were in school, that was happening, but that was really superficial. It wasn't, when I say it was superficial, we had grandparents who were, like one out of slavery. You know what I'm saying? So we had some grandparents that knew how to cook, knew how to clean. My grandmother painted her whole house outside when she was 75 years old. We had some people who knew how to get it done. So people need basic training. Basic training, how to cook, how to eat, how to wash themselves. They used to have hygiene where they walk around and check your nails and, if your clothes or whatever, you know what I'm saying? And that is gone. So the basic living is not there. And materialism is what raising the kids, really. We have to look at what is that materialism, especially for folks who don't have money. And we are some of the greatest consumers out there. Why do we need a $700 pair of sneakers when we don't have a decent place to live? What is that? So, Miss Sister Tillery.
Yes, I just wanted to piggyback off of what Ms. Kemp was saying about educating the youth, and consulting at a after-school program here in Harlem. I see that there is a need for more and more organizations such as ours to get involved with ensuring that we're participating in the growth and education of the young people of today. I know that there's money that's earmarked, but we all have program initiatives that are youth development focused. And I think, working closer with after school programs, because there's a level of, as much as the public school day to day, where the teacher, the counselors, and all the other people in the public schools pay attention to the children, but then these children go off to after school programs. And a lot of parents lean on after school programming to be there while they're working, to help with homework, but that's also the opportunity where we can come in and work with young people and give them, fill in that gap. I think that was mentioned earlier, filling in the gap of the needs that are missing amongst our young people, because these after school programs really are, they don't pay the staffing a lot. The grants are not as much money as they should be. But the need for these after school programs is there in our communities, because during COVID, these parents had to go back to work, that some of them were working in restaurants, trying to keep those restaurants going. They were cooking, they were delivering, or they were going back to offices downtown. Some of the mothers, single moms, and the children were with us. And it was an opportunity for us to step in and do more than just help them with their homework and ensure that their grades weren't slipping, but it was also an opportunity to educate children about who they are, where they come from, and help them to grow and develop, to see what's outside of the community. What other careers are out there? What do other people look like that's not your next door neighbor or the person on the corner smoking marijuana or, laid out on the street, unconscious, so there are opportunities for us there to go in and do some program and project initiatives to work with young people, starting with some of these after school programs that are around the city and in various neighborhoods. So I just wanted to just piggyback on what Ms. Kemp said about stepping in and doing some of that youth work.
Okay, well, thank you for sharing that. And I see Ms. Kemp has her hand up. And what comes to mind for me when you were saying something about the after school, I think that we have to work with the children and young people, but we also have to work with the parents. Because if you don't work with the parents, what is it? If you can't work with the parents, then you can't, but you have to try. I was part of a rites of passage called Blue Nile out of the Abyssinian Baptist Church. And one of the things the year before, when we were active, just before COVID, what we did is we had parent training. Once a month, whatever the module that the young people were working on, we taught it to the parents, because if the parents don't know, then how the parents gonna work with the kids? You know what I'm saying? So that's a very real factor. Like you said, there's a lot of Bay-based kids, and they didn't have our grandparents that were won out of slavery. That's a whole nother level. Linda Kemp, I know you have to go, so you can give your closing statement and what you're thinking and what you and your organization, what's your takeaway? What do you plan to do?
Okay, well, foremost, my take on everything is about education. Everything that everybody spoke on this panel, some way, somehow, I have been touched by it. From violence to health disparities, you name it. Joetta could tell you, because she's been a listening ear for many of the things that I've been through, and that's what gives me the energy to help me to continue to do what I do. Sometimes I say, Dad, as God just keep slapping this on me, I know I'm his favorite child. But I did put in the chat that New York City won a 30-year lawsuit for our New York schools education. That money that we would do 30 years ago with interest is now coming to our New York schools. So now, as that money's coming, I need you teachers to go and vie for what you need in those programs. Wraparound programs are vital. The small CBOs are vital. And what is also vital is that we come together as a collective impact, because the big dollars and the big folks are going to come in and eat us up, because they know this budget money is starting to flow into our communities and they're taking it. So I think the best bet for us to save our children is for them to see us in those roles, to see us as as community caregivers. It takes a village. We have to remember that mindset, and all the work that we do, we have to remember that even though that individual is so feeling that we owe them something, but we're just there to be the avenue what God sent us to do the work. And it's hard. So everybody keep yourself in prayer, keep prayed up. I do want an opportunity for us to get together again at an earlier time, ladies. And it was a pleasure. And thank you for having me. And please forward me everyone's email and vice versa.
Okay, and we're going to try to make sure that we save this chat and everyone is able to get it. We are here on this webinar now, but we do plan, this is being recorded, and we will be pushing it onto the National Association.
I got some stuff, hold up y'all, wait, because I gotta go. I got some stuff that that's coming up, and I'm gonna send out an invitation for an in-person meeting, and we're gonna have a great time.
Okay, love it. We'll
Have a
we'll
good-
look at we're looking to
Okay.
go into
Bye-bye.
that.
Good night.
Okay, thank you so much. We're gonna go to each person and we'd like you to say who you are, not who you are, you've already said that, but what you and your organization plan to do. Just based on this conversation, and obviously we're at the beginning, we're going to meet again, but just coming out of this, what is it that you think that you and your organization can do? And I will start with Suffragan Bishop Judith Osavo. And we're gonna, because we got to get to Q&A. I'm sure the
Okay, thank you again.
audience is on fire.
Thank you again, New York, the National Association of Negro, I had cataract surgery, so I'm trying to
it's
read
okay.
this thing. But we thank you for inviting us. Again, I am with the National Association of Colored Women's Club that was formed in 1896, and we are doing still all of these things that we talked about tonight, addressing gun violence, addressing voting. We do voting registration, and thank you, Ms. Brown, for that information, because I'm gonna put that piece when we do our next voter registration piece about the importance of going to do the primaries, because like I told you, I do all of the elections. Again, the National Association of Colored Women's Clubs, the Empire State Association of Women's Clubs, we work for the economic and moral, religious and social welfare of women and youth. And I like what you said about the media. I often look at the news media and I say, why are they always showing this portion and this portion? Then I come to realize that it's the producers that have this control over what goes on, how long, how many minutes we see it, how often we see it. And there has to be a way that we can address, even though we may not have that be the backing producer. And in regards to the after school programs, I think, we have enough retired people, senior citizens, African Americans who've done very well in life. And maybe we should encourage, when we're looking for people to work these after school programs, put a push in there for the retired teachers. They don't need too much money because they can't make a certain amount of money over what they're getting right now. And they have a wealth of knowledge. They have love. They have sensitivity that they could bring to any kind of environment. And I think it would be worth it. I know in our church, we have our youth program, and we try to have our youth ministers, address. I'm 70 years old. There's just so much that I can say to a youth, but we try to have our youth address the youth, embrace the youth. We all try to show love in every area, but when we can have those who have been in the trenches, been through those experiences, address our issues, it is very effective. So I thank you again for giving me this opportunity to share with these wonderful women, and you're doing wonderful work in your communities. I have a son in Georgia. I'm gonna have him look you up, and my daughter-in-law, and let's continue to do what we do. God bless you.
Okay, thank you for that comment, particularly on the media and coming from Harlem Network News and why I started it. We have to have our own media. We have to tell our own stories. We have to infuse our media with money, because the repetition of those 2-minute sound bites, we're not getting the full information, and then it's drilled into us like it is the truth, and it may not be the truth. So that's what we have to do. That's taking back our power, it's taking back our children, it's taking back our communities. Janetta Brown. I think.
Thank you very much
Great.
for being able to make some closing remarks. And I was just making a couple of notes.
Okay.
First of all, the New York Collaborative has already started a partnership with Linda Kemp and her Bringing the Peace organization to work on a few projects.
Mhm.
And as I was thinking, each organization represented here has a focus. What we need to do is include each other in our listserv so that when we're doing a program, that everyone on this panel will know what program we're doing. And invite all of the different people here to share in the programs and to share what we're doing, share our focus, and communicate with one another and the media. And
Well, thank you for
I
that,
think
because often,
if we can do that, because the more the people who are not here see that we all are together, the more they will come.
okay, well, thank you for that. And a lot of times we don't even know what's happening around the corner, and that's because of our media, and also we have to just do the drumbeat, hand to hand, you tell somebody, they tell somebody, that's how it goes. Okay, Sister Tilly. Mhm.
So basically, most of our initiatives are empowering our families, building our economic wealth, which is all focused around the environment, advocacy, and social justice. And all ties into our last initiative, which is uplift our local community. And so out of this conversation today, just like Ms. Brown stated, it's come to me that not only should we reach out to our sister chapters of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated and the other Divine Nine, we should also embrace and welcome and bring to the table so that we can work even harder on some of these initiatives to eradicate childhood hunger, to address gun violence, to ensure that we're really tying things together and ensuring the wealth gap. And so because of these initiatives, and like Ms. Brown said, we pretty much have a lot of the same goals in mind. And you bring a bunch of powerful African-American people together, men, women, and children. There's so much that we can do. And I would just love, just like the African-American Day Parade, when we see all the organizations going
Absolutely.
up and down 7th Avenue, it's just it's beautiful to see. And so we could all join forces together on our initiatives, we could really make a huge difference for our uplifting our communities.
Okay, well, thank you for that. And our prayers go up. As many of you may know, the founder of the African American Day Parade, Abe Schneider, passed away, and his homegoing was this past Friday. So thank you for mentioning some of the cultural iconic events that we have. And my mind is just working. I'm thinking when we are saying education and trade, I think that even has to go into the colleges. It has to be active. Whatever you're doing in college, it needs to be active so that you don't come out of college after you paid $100,000 in loans and don't have a job and don't have a skill. It has to be active, and our community feels good when they win, when they're doing something. At Howard University this year, my grandson is in computer engineering, and they had a real career fair where the people actually came and gave people internships that they're going to get paid for in the summer. That's real activism. And you've got to build that even into the college education. It can't be a lofty, airy thing because we're not living in a lofty, airy world. So, Sister Majette.
Thank you. Black Connect is very much aligned with the philosophies of leaders like Malcolm X, Marcus Garvey, Huey Newton, in that economic independence is the foundation of the struggle for civil rights. So we will continue to work with our Black-owned businesses and get them the resources that they need. Also want to share with you, if you can see it, this book is called The Myth of Black Progress by Alfonso Pinckney. If you haven't read it, it's a great read. He is a sociologist. This book was first published in 1983. And in there, his conclusion was that Black equity in the future is not good. And pretty much every prediction that he made back in 1983 came to fruition because the racial wealth gap is wider than it has ever been. So we will continue to focus on, what we do, which is helping build Black wealth and generational wealth. And we invite everyone to join Black Connect. We also have a mental health podcast that's on blackconnect.com. We have our own social and business networking platform that I can invite everyone to, where, like you said, we share events and we know what's going on. We tear down silos. We have chapters in New York City, Tampa, Tulsa, and we're opening the Atlanta chapter in June. So we invite everyone to visit blackconnect.org and get involved.
You're on mute, Miss Wyndham.
That's me. I was just saying, thank you so much for sharing that, because it's very, very critical what we're doing in terms of business. And it's hard, it's technical stuff. We may not know it. You're spending hours trying to figure this stuff out. And you may not have, like you said, the money to have an attorney, or if you do have an attorney, because you're not really versed in that, you may have an attorney that doesn't even know what they're doing. And then you spent your money and you're just out there. So the infusion of our community, and also us helping us hire one another, put your money into the Black community, put your, in your community, let it be a circle. That's what other communities do. That's why they can move forward. And I'm also talking about some reparations. We need an infusion of money. I saw that the mayor in Chicago has decided, okay, I got to give everybody $500 extra. You know what I'm saying? Because of what is going on, and the people who are wealthy aren't paying the taxes, and we're paying the taxes. So we got to look at what are those realities, because that is real talk. Okay, so let's wrap up with Sister Hubbard, and then we have to get to at least one or two questions, because I know we're going into the overtime now, but it's our first time, so there's a lot to be said and done.
Amen. So this has been one of the most inspirational conversations I've sat in on in a long time. And so the work that we're doing at Woman at the Well Transition Center basically is working with reintegrating women who have been through either prison or human trafficking back into the mainstream through their families, through trauma-informed practice. And but what I want to encourage people to do is mentoring. If you are not a formal mentor, take a young mother who may not know what she's doing and may not even admit that she doesn't know, and mentor them. And we started using that process when we first opened our first transition center here in Georgia. And we got the motherboard at our church to spend one evening a week, different members of the motherboard spend one evening a week with the girls in the transition center and teach them how to cook a pot roast, make bread,
Yes.
all of those things. So mentor. The other thing is motivation. And I say that because if you're in a position to hire a formerly incarcerated woman or woman returning from some form of trauma, whether it's human trafficking or addiction, whatever it is, mental health or mental illness, and you're in a position to hire her, or to see if she can get hired, then do that. She has to earn a living. Coming out of prison, so many of us have had, I know for me, I had 5 children, I've forgotten how many, I have 8. But at the time I had, and working at Waffle House and McDonald's just wasn't going to hit it. And so it's important to hire ex-offenders who are females, especially mothers, and then love, learn, and listen. And I think loving, learning, and listening helps us to move forward. Remember, listen to our elder stories. visit nursing homes and take your kids, your teenagers with you. Let them listen to some of the stories that are told. Sit in church if you don't want to go to a nursing home, and listen to some of the stories that the older members of your community will tell them about being a mother, about building a community, about building a home. And then finally, I would say, you've already said money is important. Money answereth all things, which is what the Bible says. Give and support. Support the programs in your local community. Support the women, the other women who have small businesses in your local community. We'll get a Macy's credit card, but we won't go down the street and support a young woman who has her own catering business or ribbon business or whatever. So give that money and ask that young mother, here, I'll support you. I'll buy this from you. And I'll donate this to see if you can use that to make some more. So give and support. There are no greater words that you can tell another person than I believe in you. So that's what I want to leave you.
I love it, and I'm inspired. And these are conversations that we have to have, because even with my Harlem Network News, I'm, asking, for donation support or in-kind services, or if you have a story, tell it. But it just somehow doesn't resonate. That person is going to go and buy that bag or those shoes or get that hair done. You know what I'm saying? So we have to, not that you should not, right. But I'm just saying we have to kind of shift what the paradigms are so that we're all good. You know what I'm saying? That's really what has to happen. And I would say a call to action for the young people. If you don't have anything to do, if you're not in a group or whatever it is, go out and help somebody. Reach out and touch somebody's hand. Maybe you can go to the school, or maybe you can go here, and therefore you will meet other people that you can connect with. That's very important. Don't just sit home by yourself doing this, doing that. Get out there and do some kind of service to somebody. Something that you can do is very important. If you have come out of school or you have your job, you got to do some give back, because that is how we will all prosper. And we need to prosper. I also encourage people, because everybody that's in our community has somebody who's formerly incarcerated. So let's tell the truth. Let's not hide it, because we don't have to. But I encourage everybody, if they can, to go into the prisons and see what is going on, because it is a prison industrial complex. People are making money off the families of the prisoners and the prisoners. And if people are sending prisoners money, it's because they need money to eat, and it's spend more on somebody being in prison than in 4 years of college. What is that? What does that tell you? And I want to give a shout out to my granddaughter. Her name is London Bess. And one day she called me. She lives on the Shinnecock Reservation in Southampton, and she goes to Southampton High School. And one day she called me and she was like, "Grandma, I'm gonna start a club. There's no Black people here." And so she started a club called Black Girl Magic. And she found a teacher, Miss Jeffries, who I'm a shout out also, who is her advisor. And they've been doing some great things. They've adopted families. They are having a sip and paint. I'll let people know, coming up to raise money for a college tour that they're doing. Great. They talk about how they're feeling or whatever's going on. They're trying to do some interviews with the exam. They're doing a lot of things, and it's young people doing it, and everybody's pulling their weight. My granddaughter's the president, but each and every one of those young women, and it's not only women in the club because it's a school club, so everybody has to be able to come. But I just think it's amazing, and more of that kind of work, because that's peer to peer, and it's giving people something to do. So I just want to salute her, and I'm supporting her with everything that she's doing. And I think that is a kind of hand-to-hand that we have to do. Very critical. And we have to read. And even if you don't want to read, now you can listen to the book on Audible. So do that. So we're going to go to, I see that there is a question. And the question, I believe, I don't see it anymore, but the question was, what can parents do? It was something to that effect. I'm paraphrasing. And whoever did the question can put it back up because we're getting ready to, wrap up. And if any of the other members in the audience have a question, please put them up now. But that question, the beginning of it was, what can parents do? Does anyone want to answer that?
I think it said, what can parents do daily
Okay,
to motivate
Thank
their children?
okay, love it. Thank
To get their children engaged and involved.
Thank you. Okay. Who wants to take that?
I'll take that. I answered it and it went away, so I'm not sure where it went. But first of all, we're praying women. So my first thing is to pray daily. Don't stop praying. Just don't stop praying. But also we have to affirm our young people, our children, with positive language, positive words, positive images. And you're great. You're doing a wonderful job. I know you're really trying. Not those negative things. I don't even want to mention the negative things because we know the negative things that people can say. And then my other thought was to go to the kids' performances. If you can, go to their games, go to their activities, be a face out there. Again, it may not be the mother or the father that can do this, but there may be an aunt, an uncle, a grandparent that could be that face to show, that child can see they're there for me. They love me. Maybe not all the time. My parents were working and they weren't always there, but they gave us the opportunity to go and be in the different things. I happened to gravitate to music. I wasn't a sports person, but my family was very musical. So we did do a lot of musical things. But I encourage, even in our church, the families, the parents, help your children find some social activities that will bring them together with other kids, because this is building, good skills. And then you support them. Go to your kids' teacher conferences. Yeah, somebody has to be there. The kids have to know it's important that you get up on time. It's important that you eat something in the morning. Even if they don't do it, keep saying it. Let them hear, that your love and concern is there for them. So I think those are just a few things you could do daily.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. And I would add to that, which is combined in what you're saying, talk to them. Because a lot of times children are not being talked to. Have a conversation. What happened? They might not want to tell you, but I know, like, even, from my own grandchildren, because I talk to them and I'm all involved in it. They may say I'm a hoverer, but I'm up in it, and if they're listening to whatever the music is, all the music talking about the cursing and the this and the that, and I'm listening to it too, only because I want to hear what you're listening to. And then we can have a conversation about that, because if you are shut down and telling them turn that off, they can be listening to that anytime. So you got to have some conversations about that and understand that these people that are saying who's going to listen to what, they are some people sitting up in some high places with some money trying to destroy our children with sounds. So that would be that. We're going to close down, but I don't see that question coming from the audience, but I would like to know what people think about the whole thing of the legalization of recreational marijuana in our communities. How do people feel about that? And now that they have all these, packets that are in the bodegas, the legal, the illegal, what can we do about that? Because that's something we need to address, in my opinion. Does anybody have comments on that? No comments? Okay. I mean, I will speak out. And my thing is that I know there's a lot of money in it. And, you know, they were saying, okay, you know, people that are ex-offenders, you know, they should be able to make this money. But I think we have to look beyond that. That is out the door and out the bag, and we can't roll it back. But that doesn't mean that we don't need to vet it. We don't need to control it, because the bodegas are selling stuff that look like candy and the kids are buying it. And they've been buying it. You know, if you know kids, you know, I work with young people, and, you know, after they get to know you and feel comfortable, they start telling you everything. You know what I'm saying? And so you listen. But I'm just saying that's what's going on. And I kind of feel like we have enough drugs and people with a drug problem in our community. And we have to be honest, you know, what is marijuana actually doing to the brain, to the muscles? You know, I mean, just because suddenly they legalizing it and people are making money, that doesn't mean we got to swallow that. So I don't know if anybody else wants to speak on that, but I think we need to do some research and development on that, though it's already happened. So,
I
okay.
agree.
So here we are. We've come to the beginning of the end. It has been great. And I see a note that Miss Betty, who is the president, is going to close out our program. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you for having me. And everybody, please go to Harlem Network News. We have a YouTube channel, a lot of conversations, a lot of people. If any of you would like to come on our show, you're more than welcome. And you can go to harlemnetworknews.com and reach out to me directly. I'm at 646-261-5397. It's an open door. So thank you. Miss Betty.
Thank you so much, Miss Terri Wisdom. You have hit on so many of the things that we need to address in our communities. Thank you so much to our panelists who offered us so much wisdom and power and information about the things that are going on, things that we can do. And I hope that all of us look forward to working together at some point, joining hands with each other to reclaim our children and our communities. I also would like to invite anyone who would like to join our organization to go to our national website, nanbpwc.org, and there's a form for you to fill out, and you'll be referred to one of the clubs in our organization. And I happen to be president of the Riverside Club, so love for you to get referred to us. But we'd love to have you join in the many things that we're doing. And I know you're doing great things too. So we can really just put our ideas together and make something really, really great happen. So again, thank you on the behalf of the New York Collaborative of the National Association of Negro Business and Professional Women's Clubs Incorporated. And I'll just tell you again who they are and who their leaders are. We have the New York Club, whose president is Yvonne Harris Jones. The Bronx Club, whose president is Cherie Braxton. The New Rochelle Club, whose president is Erica Davis. The Riverside Club, that's my club, and I happen to be the president. And the Williamsbridge Club, and you've heard from Joanna Brown, who is the president of the Williamsbridge Club. And we are all so grateful for your wisdom and your information and your willingness to participate in this program, which which has a major impact on all of our lives. Thank you so much.
Okay. Well, thank you, President Betty. And I believe we are going to say good night. Somebody did put something up in the question. Is it a good idea for ex-offenders to have the marijuana licenses? And I go back to, we need to research and do development on everything that's happening. We need to oversee it, because at the end of the day, it's going to impact us, and it's going to impact our children. So we got to look at what's going on and really get some clear understanding. And we have to stand up, and we have to do what we're here to do, which is to take back our children, reclaim our children, and reclaim our communities. And I believe this is a good start, and it's just the beginning. But I'm just grateful we were able to do this. It's just what the doctor ordered, and you know, we go back to the elders. Is a lot. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Okay, there's one other person I'd like to acknowledge, and
Oh,
that's Patricia Squire,
Yes,
who
yes,
is the glue
yes.
that holds the collaborative
Yes.
together. She is so resourceful, so willing, and she has really helped the collaborative stay together and be very productive. So thank you, Patricia Squire.
Yes, thank you, Patricia Squire. You're brilliant. Thank you for inviting me. I also want to thank Miss Tiffany Myers, who is at the helm of our tech team. And yes, so you know, it takes a village. It's not one person that put this together. And Pat Squire is brilliant and a tactician, because we even had a little pre-session, you know, a couple of days ago, so that we were getting a flow for what we were doing. So I love it. We got this. Forward ever, backward never. And it takes a village. Thank you. Knowledge is.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Have a blessed night, everyone. Thank you.
Okay, thank
Bye-bye.
you, thank you,
Bye-bye.
thank you. Good night.
Bye-bye.
Good night. God bless everyone.
Good night. Thank you.
Good night. Thank you.
Okay. Blessings and prayers.